This is a 2026 Toyota bZ4X, a car that promises many improvements over its pre-facelift predecessor. However, at starting around £40,000 here in the UK, it's up against a lot of competitive cars in the SUV market in the electric sphere. Stuff such as the Skoda Enyaq and the Tesla Model Y, to name just two of many. What I can tell you is that it's much better than Toyotas of old, but with the new CHR Plus launching here in the UK, which is kind of 8 or 9 tenths of this car for about £10,000 less, does the extra space of this one and the extra features warrant that sort of money? That's what I'm here to find out today. So please join me on a full tour of the car. I'm going to take you through the interior, exterior, and take it out on the road and see what I think. But before we do that, if you're looking to sell your car, let's do it the easy way, through my CarWow affiliate link below. Just punch your reg in and dealers will bid on your car. If one is successful and you accept, they'll come to your house, collect the car with cash in your bank, nice and easy. And likewise, if you're looking for a new car, we can make it super easy at Players Cars Premium. Links in the description below once again. We can source any car for you as low as 6.9% APR finance and free home delivery. So if you want a really super easy experience, trust me, let's just get this sorted out for you. Links in the description below. So the 2026 refresh for this car just brings some new battery options. So you've got the cheaper entry-level 57.7 kilowatt hour car, and then a new and improved revised long pack, which is 73.1 kilowatt hours. So the best car can get up to around 350 miles WLTP. It was previously criticised for a really low range, and this definitely isn't the most competitive in terms of real-world range in my experience, but it's definitely a big improvement on the previous generation. There's also some new motors, some faster charging efficiency, so you can now do your 10 to 80% in about 28 minutes, and your new 14-inch infotainment screen, which we saw on the CHR Plus as well. And it's just had a little bit of a nip and tuck here and there to make it more attractive. So the entry-level Icon is just under £40,000 and has reasonable equipment as standard, to be fair. So you get the 14-inch display as well as the main screen in front of you, dual wireless phone chargers as standard, heat pump is standard on all trims, which is always really welcome, heated front seats and steering wheel, power tailgate, ambient lighting, blind spot monitoring, reverse camera, and so on. The list goes on. It is actually quite a generous spec. That one though is only front wheel drive and 57.7 kilowatt hours, so around 270 miles range, which in my experience is actually quite a bit less than that. The mid-spec design is probably what a lot of people will go for. That one is around £45,000, and that has the larger battery pack, which is good on paper for up to 350 miles. That one has the panoramic 360 cam though, which is really good. The top-down camera on these is really good. Aside from that camera though, there's not a huge amount of additions in terms of your spec. They've got the same 18-inch wheels, which have better efficiency than the larger ones, and so this one is probably the sweet spot in the range. It's just a bigger battery pack and just more efficient. So the one I have here is the XL, which is the top spec model. This one is around £50,000, so it's quite steep, I guess. It does have some extra options though. So this one obviously has the same larger battery pack, but has a front wheel drive option with 20-inch alloy wheels, which does impact the range. So rather than 340 quoted, you go down to about 320, and the all-wheel drive model even less, that goes down to 290. So I think that's not particularly competitive compared to some rivals at this price point, unfortunately. However, you do get heated and ventilated front seats, heated rear seats, fully synthetic leather, so you get cloth on the trims below that. You also do get a faster onboard charger, the 22 kilowatt AC. There is a premium pack as well for £2,500, which includes JBL premium audio, a panoramic roof, and some bi-tone paint. Although I would say probably not necessary. Like, the standard stereo system is really good, and unless you want the pan roof, I wouldn't say it's really worth having. So let's have a look round it. What I will say is the mid-spec design is probably as far as you need to go. This top spec one that I have here probably is a little bit excessive, but what I do think is that they've really made some nice improvements to the design of this car. So it has the hammerhead front design like a lot of the new Toyota stuff does. You can see the daytime running lights, which change into the indicators and the hazards, which is really cool. And then down the bottom, you then have the main LED headlights. Nothing too fancy. It does pretty much look like the rest of the range, but this solar flare metallic paint really pops in the sun, which is nice. This is an optional paint with the bi-tone kind of bottom area here, so around the arches you can see it is slightly different. But I just think the front end, it's just got a nice poise to it. It definitely looks like a big improvement versus the previous gen, in my opinion. And yeah, this paint I think does help, and the 20-inch alloys, these are kind of machined alloys with like a metallic finish to the center area, and I think it does look quite good, to be fair, but these do impact the range quite a bit and they do make it ride a little bit firmer, so just something to consider. As we head down the side of the car, you'll probably notice, if you've seen my recent video on the CHR Plus, it's got a very similar profile and design, although this one I guess is a bit more Toyota RAV4 like in its overall shape. But you do still get quite a swooping roofline at the back there, which surprised me because I thought that they would go for more of a boxy shape. This is what I mean when I say the CHR Plus might be the better buy, because yes, this is a little bit larger. It's in a kind of the higher segment and you've got more boot space and so on. At the back here, it looks a bit more like the older Prius and stuff. So it's a bit of a mix and match of design elements. You've still got the kind of the light panel here, which integrates into the back where the spoiler area is. And then you've got like a lip spoiler. And then up the top, you have this kind of dual finned area with the shark fin aerial as well. It does look quite cool. I do quite like the overall design. Down the bottom, you've kind of got this diffuser area as well. At the same time, I do prefer the design of the new CHR Plus, and coming in at so much of a cheaper price point, I would only really be looking at this if you really need the extra space, to be honest, because it's a very similar car. But yeah, I quite like the profile. Again, they keep going for these kind of coupe-ish looks to them. I think the bZ4X Tourer is the one that you should be looking at if you want space, because it's effectively this car but in like more of an estate format, and I think that really works. I think that makes a lot more sense than this one, to be honest with you. But yeah, your mileage may vary. Obviously, this might be the absolute ideal size for you, and in which case you'll be really happy with the additions that they've made, the way they've really improved the handling, the ride. They've really improved reducing the noise and sound and vibrations inside the car to make this much better in terms of your day-to-day living. The dampers have been improved. So heading inside the bZ4X, you've got standard door handles with a touch sensor on the other side, which is a bit weird to lock it. As we open the door, you'll find that the mix of materials and the layout in here is quite interesting. You do have physical controls, which is very welcome. Some people will love this design, some people won't be too sure. I'll walk you through it and see what you think. So on the side here, we've got some kind of pleather on the doors, little squishy area for your elbows. I don't particularly like this material, feels a little bit cheap. And up here you have some physical door locks, which will be a welcome addition for some, and your memory for your seats, and some basic controls for your mirrors and all that kind of thing. Door space is limited, surprisingly, for a car of this size, so you'll notice that we've got basically 2 drinks pockets, like 2 bottle places, and that's about it, but no major storage there. As we head inside, you've got the bZ4X plate, also customized floor mats, which is a nice addition. The seats are quite nice though, and you'll notice this one has perforation for the ventilation and that kind of thing. This car only has 1,000 miles on it though, and it's already starting to look a little bit wrinkly down here, so I'm not sure whether this particular material will stand the test of time. Down the side here, you've got the electric control, so you've got lumbar, it's only 2-way, just in and out, and then you've got your adjustment there, and no major fancy features at the front of the seat or anything like that. There's no kind of like lift up portions or anything that you might get on Kias and Hyundais, and your VIN number is actually stored underneath this plaque down here. So overall, I think it will be a less daunting interior for people who are coming from an older car, because it's got some of that familiarity of some of their older vehicles and some physical controls and that kind of thing. But if you've checked out any of the competition, I think you might be a little bit disappointed. As you come down here, this center area, you've got a little bit of storage under here, but it's not a lot. It's a carpeted area. You've got USB-C on both sides and the main power, but nothing too crazy. But interestingly, no glove box. So over in the glove box side, let's hop in, close the door, and over on this side here, there is just kind of like a weird fabric piece that looks like netting but isn't, and there's no glove box, so that's just to make the most of the space for the electrics and that kind of thing. But a bit of a miss, isn't it? What you do have though instead is this large center console area with, again, some slightly questionable wrinkly leather on. I don't think this is real leather, it doesn't feel like it. This is hinged on both sides, so you've got a nice large opening area. And inside there is also a removable tray, so you can see how deep that is. There's actually a book in there, and that goes quite far down, and this is carpeted as well, so plenty of space down there, but just a little bit awkward, isn't it? As for the rest of the layout, let's get the car turned on. So there's a power button down here. I'm going to put my foot on the brake and press that. The car will spring to life. And then we have a pretty okay layout. Ergonomically, I can get the seat in the position that I like. The driving position is okay, and I have decent visibility out. So you can see the mirrors there. I've also got the blind spot lights on the mirrors, but no cameras for that. And then in the rear view mirror as well, you can see a large C-pillar, but nothing too crazy for this sort of car. Most cars have that now, although this does have auto dimming and the rear cam and all that kind of thing. And the top-down camera is quite good. But yeah, overall, the design and the layout, I'm not 100% convinced about, mainly because of this combi meter display here. Do ignore the flicker of this screen as well. When we're looking at it in a moment, it'll be okay. It's just because of the refresh rate of the display. But as you're looking, you can kind of see in my driving position, I've got this does tilt and telescope, and I've got it in a position where I can just about see everything that I need to see on this screen here. But that can obscure it. You're kind of peering over it to look at that display, which can be a little bit annoying. But that display hosts everything that you might need to know. It's fairly simple, a little bit outdated, I would say. So you've got like your range and your driving information on this side with your speed limit warning. Thankfully, the ADAS stuff is not too intrusive. You can turn it off quite easily, and the beeps and bongs aren't too bad. And then you've got some stuff that you can cycle through. So on the steering steering wheel on the left hand side, there's these controls here, which will allow you to cycle through some of those things. So you've got a compass, you've got the audio, your trip information, and so on. So yeah, pretty basic, but gets the trick done. Obviously some cars don't even have a display here now, so that's something to think about. And then this steering wheel, quite bulbous. I don't really like the look of it, but it is heated. It's got nice stitching. And on the left-hand side, you've got plenty of physical controls. You've got your voice commands. You've got a nice quality volume toggle, which is always welcome. And then on this side, you've got all of your driver assists, like your cruise control stuff and your modes. So this is quite easy to use on the go, especially when you've just got your thumb there. I quite like the way they've kind of implemented that. However, it's not quite as comprehensive as obviously your Tesla Autopilot, or for example, your Kia and Hyundai, where you can just press one button on the steering wheel and the car will start steering itself. This is kind of just a more traditional adaptive cruise setup. Down here on the right hand side, you've got some ventilation, and then you've also got your trip reset and a couple of controls for stuff like your fogs and your tail. Everything is quite well damped though. Everything feels quite high quality when you're using it. You've got obviously your indicators and lights, and then wipers on that side, very traditional layout. And then you've got some texture on the dash. So this one has ambient lighting. That's kind of across the range of standard. It's kind of built into the bottom of the dash there, which is always good. And then up top, you've got some texture. So you've got the speaker covers there. The sound system in this is fine. I wouldn't bother going for the JBL one necessarily. And then you've got some kind of, I don't know what texture this is. It's kind of like a rubbery, plasticky material, but it does add some texture and a little bit of a nicer finish to the materials in here. And that runs across the top of the dash, as you can see over here. So that's a nice welcome touch. A little bit of contrast stripping there, and then also your vents, again, built in nice and easy. But it is quite basic, isn't it? It's quite a basic look to it. As for this display in the center, it's really basic. So they haven't really done much with it in terms of key features and things like that. Obviously, there are rivals out there that do this a lot better now with lots of kind of additional apps and that kind of thing. But what I will say is the host of controls included is shortcuts are good. So obviously this is all touchscreen, but you've got your heated steering wheel, ventilated and heated seats here, access to your climate control and that kind of thing. You also got a shortcut screen to go through to frequently used stuff, and you can also change all of your driver assist stuff in here and turn off all the beeps and bongs, and then some climate controls at the bottom. And these are actually integrated into the screen. I don't know if you can see, but it's part of the screen, and these are just dials which you can easily adjust temperature. And then you've got some shortcuts down here as well for your front windscreen defog, your volume control, and also your demist for the rear and mirrors. So there's nothing really on here to write home about. Like, you can go in and do some EQ, for example, some very basic EQ, and the sound system is really good. The sat nav is responsive, so it's pretty decent, although you would just use Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, which is wireless. So I don't really see the need to use the inbuilt stuff too much. So I don't really care about it because of the fact I'm using my phone anyway, but there's not really much customization or anything interesting in here. You know, every other brand is starting to do some really nice stuff with the screens now, and Toyota are falling behind with the software, unfortunately. But if it's just something you're going to plug your phone into and you don't care, then the fact that there are these physical controls, then that is always a nice plus. And look, it looks like a robot. Can you see that? There's his eyes, there's his nose, there's his mouth. And as we move down, you've got the climate vents, you've got your hazard switch there, and 2 wireless phone chargers as standard. Down here, you've just got your basic vehicle control. So you've got eco mode, traction off, snow mode. Here you've got your reverse cams, and then your shifter. Shifter is a little bit weird. So you've got park up here, and then this you have to basically push down and turn. So push down, turn for drive, push down, turn for reverse. It works kind of well, but it's just a little bit to get used to. And then down here, some nice grippy cup holders. But yeah, we're kind of limited on storage space in here for a car of this size. Another thing to note is there are paddles on the steering wheel for controlling the level of regen braking, which we'll go on to when we get the car out on the road. This reverse cam though is pretty good. As we go into reverse, this one has the top down version, and you'll see it comes up here. But what you'll notice is as I start to reverse, it actually starts painting a picture of underneath the car. So stepping into the back of the bZ4X, you'll notice pretty much the same affair back here in terms of your materials on the door. You've also got this very similar amount of space, in fact, with the 2 door pockets there, and then your physical locks, which is a nice addition. And in the back, a fairly flat load floor, but you do have a little tiny hump in the middle. Not really a deal breaker though. Not much in terms of storage. You've got this kind of elastic bit on the back of the seat, but there is no kind of drawers or anything under here like in some other brands, which is a shame because there's a lot of space there. As you'll notice though, it is a very low floor, which can be troublesome for your legroom, even though there's tons of space back here. So it's quite an interesting setup really. What you do have though on this top end one, you've got the rear heated seats, you've got climate back here, and 2 phone chargers, so USB-C ports back here. Nothing too fancy though. In this one, there's no sunroof, so you've just got a little reading light, and then we can pull down this center area. This is a 60/40 split back here, and it has a couple of levels of recline as well. In the center here, nice armrest with some cup holders and another little slot there. You could probably put a phone or a tablet in that or something like that. And then the Isofix back here are the squish between the seat kind, but there is a kind of a separate little portion of leather, so you could probably easily get that repaired if you ended up damaging it by putting them in and out all the time. So there's a couple of different things to consider with that. But the good thing about these is you don't lose any covers, but you've got the nice perforations back here again. It's a fairly comfortable seat, and you've got the nice contrast stitching, but nothing too fancy compared to some of the key rivals at this price. So stepping into the back of the bZ4X, and the first thing you'll notice is how high the floors are, and this was a problem in the CHR Plus as well. Someone with big, long, gangly legs like me is going to struggle a bit because there's no thigh support here. The seats aren't raked up quite high enough, and I really have to stretch out because the floor is so high. I just feel like my knees are up by my ears here. It's a really uncomfortable position to sit in, which is a shame because otherwise it's very spacious. I've got tons of headroom, which is absolutely fine. So this is the most upright the seat can go, and it's still fairly reclined, but you can actually put it right back as well, so I can get a really reclined position. This would be super comfortable if I had enough space to rest my legs properly. It's really frustrating, to be honest, and it's a shame because it's just an otherwise nice space. In the middle, things are okay. There is a tiny little hump, as you saw, but it's not too bad, and I could sit here, but I wouldn't want to do that with two other adults beside me because it would be cramped. But for the little kiddies, it should be fine. So yeah, it's just a bit of a miss in comparison to other cars at this price point, unfortunately. It'll be fine for kids, but for adults, yeah, I'm not so sure. So I've got electric tailgate on this one. Just press the button and up she comes, and fairly decent in operation. And of course you've got then a load cover which you can remove. The best thing about this is it's just a pull, comes back like that, and it's on springs, very similar to the Kia and Hyundai stuff. So just literally grab it on one side and the whole thing spring loaded like a tension rod. So with that load cover removed, it is quite easy to actually stow it under the floor. Just fold this back, and there's a little section there for it to pop in. So you just pop it in there, and it will spring load onto that side, and then it's stowed nice and easily under the floor. So yeah, that's super convenient, isn't it? So with that load cover removed, you can see that this definitely is a more generous space than in something like the CHR Plus. So that's kind of why you would go for something like this, but it's much bigger if you go for the touring variant. This one though, very similar opening to something like a Tesla Model Y, and you can see that we've got some underfloor storage as I demonstrated with the load cover, which you can stow under there, as well as you've got a deep well for charging cables and things like that. And this floor is adjustable obviously, but it's nice that it kind of rests like this, so that you've got an easy load in and out. And you've got some basic features back here. So you've got like some tie hooks, there's max 4 kilo there, so that's good for, you know, tying stuff down to and that kind of thing. It would be nice to see some more shopping hooks and things like that though. But there is on this one a full vehicle to load, so this is a actual proper plug socket which you can activate, which is nice. And then there's a portion under here which has got like your safety kit and all that kind of thing. And you just need to reach in here to put these seats down. So 60/40 split, I can just reach in, put that down like that, and then reach in, put that down like that. But there's no pass-through ski hatch or anything like that. What you will notice though is it creates a nice open sort of space. It is a bit of a dip, like a V shape though, although the carpet does kind of sort itself out. You don't need to manually do anything there. You can see it pretty much caters to itself and creates a big open area which you can slide big things in. But obviously be aware that this window is still pretty low on this kind of sloping section here, so taller items will need to go a bit further in, and then you're kind of a bit limited because this slopes upwards a bit. So if I come around here, thankfully we've got normal side door handles on this one. You can see though that it is a little bit of a slope, so if you've got something really tall you might struggle compared to some of the competitors, but it is easy to pop that back up with one hand, and the seat belts don't snag too much. You've then also got the option of reclining it if you want to. So I think it's about time we get this thing out on the road then and see what it's all about, don't you? I think the drive is where this thing really excels. So out in the bZ4X, what I can tell you is around town, nice, easy maneuverability. It is really light, but you can tell it's been tuned for UK roads just that little bit. They're really keen to mention that because a lot of these cars are just made for, you know, either sort of JDM market or USA market, whereas this is definitely kind of geared towards a bit more European handling taste, which is always a nice touch. But yeah, low speed, really refined, really nice. And this acoustic glass that they've added, as well as reducing the vibrations in the cabin and so on and so forth, it has made a big difference, I'm glad to report. The ADAS stuff you can turn off really easily. It's not that intrusive, so that's top marks from me. And like I mentioned, like The actual ergonomics of this car aren't as bad as you think. You might think that it looks a bit weird, you know, in terms of like the way I'm peering over the steering wheel and that kind of thing, but the actual driving position, the fact I can rest my elbows and see over nicely, see over the nose of the car, it does work pretty well, which is good because some cars definitely don't. So yeah, low speed refinement, really good. The dampers have been adapted a little bit as well to make them a little bit more refined on the kind of potholes and the little bumps and that kind of thing. Over speed bumps as well, you do notice that it's quite a smooth experience. It doesn't crash around at all, and that's something that's really positive about most modern Toyotas. They're not crashy cars, which is a real plus. Big improvement over the previous generation, definitely more comfy than a Model Y or a Skoda Enyaq as well. But I think that's probably the only real category it absolutely excels of those cars. In terms of power delivery, it's nice and linear, feels really good, and you've got a couple of levels of regen. You've got 4 levels of regen on the paddles here, so I can free it up completely, or I can bring it right down so that the car brakes quite heavily for me when I come off of the accelerator. But unfortunately, no one pedal drive, which I do miss. I think that all electric cars should have that option. And the Kias and Hyundais that have the paddles do allow you to go right the way down into what they call iPedal mode, which is their one pedal drive. And I do really miss that here. This one being the front wheel drive model as well, it does put the power down quite well. It's quite keen on the turning, but you do notice torque steer, especially with the weight of this. This is over 2 tons, this car, and you do notice it scrabbles a little bit when you're turning in. So if the roads are a bit wet or icy or anything like that, as you plant the accelerator on the turning, the traction control light is flickering. You can feel the car is kind of dragging you forwards because it wants to kind of move around at the front end. So it can be a bit disconcerting. Obviously the 4-wheel drive option won't experience that, but just something to bear in mind really. The thing that most people will care about is how kind of refined and quiet it is. It's definitely really, really good in that department. So yeah, off the line, puts the power down okay. It's not going to tear your head off at all, but you know, it gets the job done. It's just that the lower power model I think will struggle a little bit, especially at this weight point. And then on the turning, if I plant the throttle, it's fighting me a little bit. Joining the motorway now, I can feel, yeah, there's a bit of torque steer as we kind of like try and turn in under at hard acceleration, so you do need to learn that a little bit. And it is a shame there's no blind spot cameras, because a lot of cars at this price point now have that, but you do have the blind spot monitors on the side mirrors there, so yeah, it could be certainly a lot worse. There's definitely enough grunt to just plant it on the motorway, get that overtaking, no problem at all though. And it's, yeah, that front end torque feels pretty good. And front wheel drive, the one thing I will say about it is that it does still provide quite an engaging experience. It's just that a lot of cheaper rival cars have rear wheel drive, which is more fun, more playful. The drag coefficient of this isn't as good as the new CHR Plus either, because it's more boxy, more large. So you do notice that not only is it not quite as efficient, but also you do get a bit more wind noise from the top of the car and kind of the sides here. It's not disturbing, and when you've got the sound system up, you're not really going to notice it at all. It's just worth mentioning that I'm having to raise my voice a little bit more in here versus the cheaper CHR Plus. The other thing to note is in terms of road noise, the 20s do definitely make that a little bit more prominent, and it also makes it not ride quite as well. So it's just something to consider. If you're going for that top end one, the 20s, they do impact that. I do really like the top down cam though, the fact that you can see where the wheels are and you can actually see under the vehicle if the car's already seen that part of the road. It is definitely better in every way than the predecessor, but compared to the other cars on the market, it does still feel just a little bit dated, a little bit old-fashioned. Some people will really enjoy that though. That's the thing, we can't judge it for that, because that's what some people want. They don't want something that feels as modern as a Tesla or one of the other new kind of brands coming in that are all touchscreen. This is a little bit more analog and a little bit more traditional, if you like. I do miss the one pedal drive in traffic situations like this as well. Like, I don't have to use the brake much because it's bringing me down to sort of like 3 miles an hour before I need to tap the brake, but still it just takes away from the electric car experience, in my opinion. Even if you want to do it the way Kia and Hyundai do it, where you can have it in that mode or completely free it up into like a normal driving experience, that's the way to do it. Give people the choice. It also sometimes, in a low speed situation, when you plant the throttle, it uses the radars to detect stuff around you, and if it thinks that you're liable to hit something in the near future, it will actually stop some of the throttle input. So sometimes you notice you go to floor it in a car park or something to quickly dart around something, and the car basically tells you no and slows you down, which can be a little bit annoying and interference. So a little bit of a faster road here now, and it is quite fun the way that when you plant the throttle, the kind of the nose of the car lifts up, and then the torque steer kind of kicks in, because as you're turning in, all the power's going to the front end, so it kind of just pulls you forward. It's quite an interesting sensation. It's definitely not the most dynamic car in the world, but you know, once you're used to that, you can play around with it a little bit. And let's go with a little roundabout test here. This is quite a small roundabout, but I'm gonna, on the exit, I'm gonna floor it out. Or traction control kicks in and is not willing me to do very well there. But yeah, it's okay. You know, it puts the power down a lot better than you might expect it to for a front wheel drive car. There are certainly cars out there. You know, I drove for the 35 grand Geely EX5 recently and compared that in some ways to the CHR Plus. And that car is way more comfortable and modern on the inside and stuff like that. It's really, really good value for money, but it doesn't put the power down until it's front wheel drive and it's just constantly lighting up the front wheels and the traction control doesn't know what it's doing. Whereas in this, you can tell that it's been tuned in such a way that it is really, really good in terms of putting the power down and actually getting the job done. So I wouldn't say the front wheel drive should be really off-putting to you. If that's like an absolute deal breaker, I'd say drive it first. One other thing that I do find a little bit upsetting is the brakes are a little bit crunchy under the foot. They do the trick. It feels a little bit like a balloon under your foot, like you press it and there's just this kind of resistance and not much pedal feel. And then suddenly it might go a little bit crunchy and nasty on you, but it's not quite as bad in this, surprisingly, as it is in the slightly sportier CHR Plus. So it could be worse. It's just that there are systems out there that are a little bit better. In this regen mode though, I don't really notice it because I'm not using the brakes that much, you know? It's not really that much of a big deal. And oh, yeah, it's so nice when you accelerate in, the car just kind of nose up and it pulls you round. It's quite flat to corner as well. It's not like a body roll central like you might expect from a car of this size, but that's thanks to that new ET and GA platform, because that works really well on the CHR Plus as well. It's obviously a lower center of gravity than this car, so it handles a bit better. But the only thing I would say is just don't be alarmed, because this might wash out on you a little bit in really, really severe situations. If you go trying to hunt round a roundabout and you plant it on the exit, it might understeer a little bit, but it's not as bad as you might think for a big old boat. It is quite nice on these motorway cruising situations as well, because I've got ventilation. Unfortunately, no massage or any fancy features like that, but like I said, the sound system's pretty good and the acoustic glass is doing an okay job. It's just that on these 20-inch alloys, I don't really like the amount of tyre noise, and I think it could be a bit more comfy. So for me, as much as I like the look of them, I think I would go for the mid-spec design trim, because that is kind of the sweet spot in terms of price and specification. You still get the larger battery and the better performance, as long as you're happy with the front wheel drive. But again, I'll just come back to those rivals. The Tesla Model Y is where I put my money in this bracket, I think. Or if you don't want a Tesla, then definitely the ENQUIRIES. Obviously there's stuff like the Aria as well. There's loads and loads of different options out there, but I think for me, yeah, I'd be looking at maybe a Kia or Hyundai alternative, like the Ioniq 5, Kia EV6. Yeah, there's just a lot of options, isn't there? The Skoda Enyaq is a really good contender as well, because it's very similar price-wise to this, but I just think you get a nicer quality interior and it just feels a little bit better screwed together. It's hard though, because this is by no means a bad car. It's a good jack of all trades. It's just that at this price, I just think there's so much nicer stuff out there at the moment. And like I said at the very beginning, the CHR Plus is effectively the same car as this, but it handles and drives a little bit better, rides a little bit better. Granted, it's not as large, but in some cases it's 10 grand cheaper. So it's hard to justify something like this, you know? And in a world where loads of fancy cars are cropping up for 10, 15 grand cheaper than this, yeah, it's a tough sell. It's a tough sell. But then Toyota, you know, proven reliability record. You've also got their exceptional warranty. So it starts off at 3 years, 60,000 miles, but goes up to 10 years if you keep going back and having a service with them. And your battery warranty, 10 years, 70% health, or 1 million miles. That's a good guarantee, isn't it? You might think I've been a bit harsh on the bZ4X, but I think it's just because of the incredible amount of competition that we've got in the market at the moment. That being said, this is a great revision to an already decent car, and thankfully now they've managed to nail getting the extra range that's necessary in today's world, as well as the creature comforts and the design elements that people want in the interior. So there we go, guys. Thank you so much to Toyota for lending me the car. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. If you want to check out the competition, I've got loads and loads of videos on the channel of all of the different cars in question. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.